Hello and welcome to Gravitas Wins Conversations. I'm your host, Joseph Jude. If India has to grow, we need a lot of startups and entrepreneurs. Not all of the startups will be privileged to bootstrap their ideas. That's where angel investors come in. Today, I have my friend and an angel investor, Manish Verma, as a guest. He has been a banker, an operator of a business, and an investor now. He knows all angles of running a business. We are going to discuss how to get funded, how angel investors think, and what happens after getting funded. Before we get into the interview, can I request you to subscribe to the podcast, write a review, and share the podcast with your fellow business leaders? Hello, Manish. Welcome to the conversation.
Hi, Joseph. Good morning, and thank you so much for hosting me on this podcast. I've been hearing so much about your podcast. I was just looking forward to it. So, thank you so much.
Manish, what is the trigger point to become an angel investor for you?
Okay, Joseph, I know, a lot of people have been asking me about this question. So, there's a small story behind this. If you allow me to take 2 minutes, just to give you a context, I come from a corporate background. I spent about 20 odd years in the corporate world. I spent 8 years in the auto industry, worked with the Japanese at Toyota corporate office at Bangalore, moved back to Delhi, joined General Motors, spent about 2.5, 3 years, switched to banking, worked there for 12 years, have handled pretty senior profiles. So there was some family emergency because of which I had to quit my corporate profile, take a shift, move back to Chandigarh because of family reasons. So while I was shifting from being a hardcore retail banker and moving on to the world of the startup ecosystem, the world of entrepreneurship, because these are two separate ball games, which I realized at a much later date, at a later stage. See, I was starting my journey as a startup founder. I had some spare money which I had, in cash using my ESOPs. I thought while I'm starting my journey as a startup founder, it's very important for me to get a taste of the real startup ecosystem as to because tomorrow if I'm going to expect people to invest in my startup, I should actually know what is angel investing all about. So I used this little bit of spare money which I had thanks to my ESOPs liquidation. I put small chunks of money in a couple of startups, which unfortunately all bombed, but it was a good learning experience. I mean, no regrets. Yes, I lost a little bit of my money, but thankfully I lost at a very early stage.
Mm.
Gave me a lot of wisdom, gave me a lot of sense as to what is this angel investing world all about. So number one. Number two, I got introduced to the world of angel investing courtesy of my very close friend of mine, Saurabh, who is now my business co-founder as well. He's been a big time angel investor for the last decade. I guess more than that. So he got me introduced to the world of angel investing. I think all credit thanks to him. I think no looking back after that. Been doing a couple of angel investments since then, and I think been a good journey so far.
Very good to hear that. And there is no better learning than doing it yourself, especially
Yes,
especially when you burn your money.
yes. I mean the kind of wisdom, the kind of learning that you get after burning your own hard-earned cash. I know it hurts here, but no,
But
it hurts here, and this is where you get the wisdom.
it
So
hurts. It hurts here, but then the lessons are also seared here.
yes. Totally agree. Totally agree. So
Okay.
that is how my journey of angel investment started. So it both started simultaneously. My first journey as a startup co-founder and as an angel investor, so both started simultaneously.
Okay. So let's
Yeah.
talk about your angel investing journey and what you focus on.
Mhm.
Uh, do you have an overall investment philosophy and the core principles that drive your investments?
So, Joseph, I think interesting question. Before I answer your question, and I think you'll allow me a couple of minutes to give you a brief background about what we do. So, my latest venture is a company called Angel Blue Holdings Private Limited. This is a full stack angel network. In the sense, there are multiple components to our business model. So, one is we do fundraising for startups right from early stage, but post revenue till about pre series or Series A. Beyond which, we tie up with the respective VC firms and help the startups to get funded. So that is one piece of our business model. The second piece is we do strategic consulting in terms of business models, processes, revenue models, operations, sales structures, B2B, B2C, offline, online. So we provide a sense of direction to the startups, because this is the experience which I, along with other co-founders, have. I think we collectively bring a lot of value to the table. Number two. Number three, we offer a basket of support services in terms of company incorporation, legal, taxation, manpower, branding, PR. You want help in terms of getting your website made or mobile app. If there's a D2C startup which wants its products to be listed on a marketplace like Flipkart or on Amazon, so we get that done. You want help in terms of brand investors, we've got a respective ecosystem partners. You want our influencer marketer, we get that. So in other words, we are like a one-stop shop, right? From fundraising to strategic consulting and to offering a basket of support services. So this was as far as what we as a company do. Okay. Now coming back to your question in terms of our philosophy and our thesis for investment, we are not one of those typical hardcore aggressive angel networks. No, we're not that. We are just a 6 month old baby. We're still trying to find our way in this sort of cluttered ecosystem, which is still not very, very organized. We would say we are very, very conservative. We don't play the valuation game. Yes, valuation is part of this ecosystem, but we try and follow a very conservative approach. We look at startups which have some sort of sense towards profitability, who've got a solid business model. There has to be path towards profitability. In terms of the segments, we are industry agnostic, we are geography and agnostic. We look at the sectors which are in the priority list for us. Is we Our first priority is tech. When I say tech means fintech, biotech, climate tech. Yes, concepts like EV and solar are coming up in a big way. Food tech is coming up in a big way. We look at sectors which have a lot of focus on AI, ML, machine learning, sorry, IoT, data analytics. These make a lot of sense. Uh, Another very interesting observation which we've had the last few months is, now thanks to cheaper data and faster internet, content creation and generation is coming up in a big way. So when you say content generation, it can mean in terms of visual, text, audio, video, and content generation creation is coming up in a big way. So this is one of the core focus areas for us. So we try and help these companies in terms of strategy as well as in terms of fundraising. So this is broadly how we look at companies from a investment point of view.
Okay. Thank you, Manish. This is a very comprehensive answer. I want to dive into two. I want to kind of branch out into two aspects of it. One, the angel investing. How can
Yeah.
somebody partner with you for the angel investing? That's one part. Another one is from a startup point of view, how can they get funded? What happens, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now,
Okay.
let's talk about from a startup point of view. You already said you are industry agnostic and geography agnostic. How does this work? I mean, how can they interact with you? You said they have to be revenue making. It is not at a concept stage, but it is at some point in time they have a good business model. How can they
Yeah.
contact you? How does this process look like? Say, for example, walk us through. Say, for example, I'm a founder. I have a revenue making startup. I have it. How do I approach you? What do you require? How do I get funded from you?
Sure. Fine. I think makes sense. So typically what we do is we are not a fund ourselves. We are more like a syndicate. So when we invest in startups, we invest from our own balance sheet. Plus we make investments through our angel investors. So in the last 6 odd months, that ever since we started, we've been able to onboard roughly about 70, 75 odd angel investors at a pan-India level. We've got some investors from Dubai, UK, and US as well. Gradually, we are going aggressive in terms of each in terms of angel investors at a all India level. Number one, okay. So typically, if you are a startup founder, you want to get funded. So what we do is we try and make ourselves visible as much as possible in the startup centric events. We are there on social media. LinkedIn, we are very, very, very active through word of mouth, through our presence in such local events and social media. And we've got a tie-up with multiple networks across India. Let's say, for example, in Chandigarh, we have a strong Karapo relationship with Chandigarh India Network. Similarly, we have partnerships with FARD and Pedal Start and a couple of others in Delhi. We're in talks with a couple of networks in Bangalore, Chennai, and Mumbai. So one is you onboard investors, number one. Number two, if you're not able to onboard investors so aggressively, idea is to be in touch and make yourself feel visible, courtesy other networks. So that way we've been able to create a strong structure and visibility platform for us. So tomorrow, if you want to get funded, okay, you try and reach us. So even today, on average, we're still getting about 3 to 4 startup pitches every single day. I mean, anywhere between 85 to 100 pitches we're getting every single month. I mean, although we've just been in the system for the last 6 odd months. So we have our own evaluation criteria basis which we decide to go ahead or not with a respective startup. Typically, we use a framework called Persistent. I picked up this persistent framework from a book called Funding Your Startup by Professor Dhruv Nath and Sushanto Mitra. I think I've been thanking Professor Dhruv. I've met him a couple of times. He's based out of Delhi. I've been thanking him so much. Thanks to him, at least my fundamentals regarding angel investment and selection of startups has been cleared. So typically, what we do is we apply this persistent framework to every startup that we come across. So, I mean, I'll just take 2 minutes to explain what this persistent framework is. So it's a framework using which we decide to whether to go ahead or not. Persistent. I mean, if you talk about P, we say what is the problem being solved and what is the solution. E is an earnings model. By solving a particular problem and the solution, how are we going to make money? Okay, that's the earning models, whether it's a subscription model, whether it's a lump sum, whether it's okay. So there are various earning models. R is a risk involved. By solving a problem and offering a solution and while making money, is there any risk involved? Risk can be in terms of technology or legal or political or socioeconomic. Okay, so what are those risks involved? PER. S is what is the size of the market? Is the market size, no matter how brilliant your idea is, but if the market is very small, then we look at concepts like TAM, SAM, SOM. So the lot of investors, the lot of startup founders, they come up with TAM of at a global level million. It doesn't matter. What we really want to see is what is your starting point, which is your SOM, your serviceable obtainable market. Okay, on an immediate basis, next 6 months to 1 year, what is the market which you're trying to tap and how are you going to do it? So PERS. I is what innovation are you looking at? What is the uniqueness? What is the newness that you bring into the table? PERSI. Again, S is scalability. If your model is not scalable, that's a strict no. We immediately take a back step. No matter how brilliant the founding team is, no matter how brilliant the idea is, but if the model is not scalable, it's not worth touching the model, touching the idea. So PERSIST. T is one of the most important aspects, which is a team. Okay, in terms of the credentials, in terms of the work experience, typically we look at about 2 to 3 co-founders. These co-founders should be coming with a complementary skill set, maybe for example one from a marketing background, one finance, one operations, maybe one from software. Because let's say, for example, if there is a startup which has 3 co-founders and all 3 are from marketing guys, who's going to manufacture the product? Who's going to look at the production? Who's going to manage the finance suite? Who's going to manage the operations? So typically, so all this, if there are 3 to 4 co-founders, ideally we prefer all these co-founders to have complementary skill sets so that it's like 1 and 1 11, right? So PERSIST. E is entry barrier. What is that moat? What is the entry barrier you've been able to create around your product? N is niche. You know, tomorrow you may be planning to add 10 to 20 different product categories. Let's say, for example, the way Flipkart and Amazon started in India. Today, there's not a single product which is not available on Flipkart or Amazon. But both of them, if you remember, they started with a niche called books.
Books.
Yes, I'm sure you remember. So they picked up a category called books. They mastered themselves. They ensured an efficient, seamless supply chain system across the country. Once they had mastered the concept of books, they moved to the next category, which was DVDs. From books to DVDs to category CD. So you start off with a niche. So what we want to see is what is the niche they're trying to capture and they look at. And the last is traction. So as I said, we don't look at pre-revenue businesses. We look at businesses which are post-revenue. Okay, maybe 6 months to 1 year. So depending upon the industry, depending upon the product and the solution, what kind of revenue is it? I mean, not to say that we want in millions or crores, but last 6 odd months, how is the traction? What kind of products, what kind of customer base, what kind of categories, what kind of geographies they've been able to tap, and what is the growth rate? Because if the growth curve is flat, there is a red flag. So we have these different metrics. This is which we take a subjective call and decide whether to go ahead or not.
Okay, lovely.
So that's this. So this is the framework which we typically try and follow.
I think we should have a separate podcast episode only on that particular framework. we can go deeper into each aspect of that.
No, what I suggested, I think I'll get along with Professor Dhruvnath also. I think he'll do a much better job. He'll do a far better, more justice to the concept, since he's the brainchild behind this concept.
True. Okay, so I'm going to take only one aspect of it. As I said, we cannot go deeper into each one of this aspect. Let's talk about the valuation. So you are saying it's post revenue and about 6 months, 1 year, and so on and so forth. At that particular point in time, how do you value the company? Or valuation is not the important point, and then you are looking at all the other aspects only?
As I said, one is whether we want to decide whether to go ahead or not. We use the persistent framework.
Yeah, okay.
That's a strict yes or no. And we have the checklist. This is which we take a subjective call whether it's a yes or no. If at all it's a yes to move it, then we move to the next level. We assess the different parameters. We look at the business model. We do look at the revenue model. If there is a path towards profitability, we understand this is not a conventional business enterprise where there's a strong focus on cash flow and self-sustenance right from day one, because this is not the startup. This is not what the startup industry is all about, But there has to be some path towards profitability. If not today, at least 2 years, 3 years down the line. We look at the founder's ability to convince us. How are they going to achieve the numbers? What are the financial projections? Year 1, year 2, year 3. Okay, we don't go beyond year 3. In fact, even if they're able to convince us in terms of first 2 years with broad calculations, what are the price range? What are the gross margins? What are the net margins? What kind of cash burn are they looking at? Some broad metrics, some broad numbers. I think we're still home. Then we look at concept like valuation, as you asked me. See, valuation, there is no defined way of valuing a company, because unlike a conventional business where you have concepts like DCF, the discounted cash flow method, that I don't think that can be applied here, because tomorrow what is going to happen? It's very volatile. I would have heard this term called VUCA.
Yeah.
Right? Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous.
Yeah.
Where there are two things which actually determine the success of a startup: the speed and scale.
Mm-hmm.
When you're running very fast on a highway, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So that is how typically a startup waves. So valuing a company using some concrete methodology, I think that's, in my sense, it doesn't work out. Valuation is more of a negotiating tool. It's more of an understanding. There are different metrics. There are different parameters which get involved. The tech-centric startups, they get valued higher. Normally, we look at multiples of revenue. There are some startups which look at multiples of EBITDA. If it's EBITDA positive startup, okay, and if you're very conservative, then you look at maybe 8x or a 10x multiple of EBITDA. If the company is still loss making, okay, but there is a clear path towards profitability, then you look at the revenue, look at the annual revenues into 7, 8, depending. The tech-centric companies, we look at a multiple of 8 to 10x.
Mm-hmm.
Non-tech, if you look at fashion, you look at food, typically 4 to 6x. Maybe transportation, logistics, again 4, 5x. So ultimately, what I'm trying to say is valuation is more of a negotiating tool. You're a startup founder, you would claim a 10 million valuation. We are an investor, we would say we want 5. Ultimately, you end up, you negotiate, and you arrive at a simple figure. Because valuation is not the most important thing. What is actually more important is the business model and the financials. So those things are more important.
Lovely. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying that, Manish.
Yeah.
While we are still on that startup side of it, are there any investments that you can talk about? You don't have to name the company, but is there any investments that you are very happy that it has come in well, and then anything that you can talk about? I know you are only 6 months old, but still.
No, having said that, we have made a couple of investments. As I said earlier, we're not a fund ourselves. We don't have a funding license from SEBI. So we're not a fund ourselves. We're more of an aggregator. We're more of a syndicate. So we invest out of our own balance sheet, which is very minimal. Okay. Mainly we invest through our angel investors and other angel networks. Okay, there's one investment which I think we can probably talk about, which we've just made, is which we made last month. There's a company called Facts. Okay, it's a FNP, food and beverages centric accelerator. Okay, now the reason why we chose this particular start company was, one, food and beverages is a non-cyclical business. It is an ever-growing industry. Thanks to, I think, globalization and the Indians getting, I mean, they're getting a taste of the global world. The international best practices are coming to India. The industry, this F&B industry, which was erstwhile very, very unorganized, there is no sense behind it, okay, which is slightly getting organized, okay. There are a lot of players jumping into the bandwagon, okay. It is slightly, I will not say it's a red ocean, but it's a mix. It's a, okay, but there's a lot of scope
Mm.
because it is directly proportional to the per capita GDP growth of the country, directly proportional to the disposable income of family
Household.
households. Yes, it is directly proportional to the awareness and your taste buds. You know, so ultimately, this industry is bound to grow. F&B, this FigFacts is not one single startup. It's an aggregator. It's a accelerator which further helps food and beverage centric startups to grow. So in that way, our risk is mitigated.
Mm.
We're not invested in one particular startup. We invested in a network, which this network itself has about a couple of startups. Even if one startup goes down, there are others to balance it out. Okay. Why we invested is because the founder and team, there are four people, very, very strong credentials. Okay. All four from different backgrounds. One is a hardcore business person, very aggressive, very knowledgeable, and very hardcore. He's got a very clear business sense. Other is a hardcore finance guy. Third is the hardcore technology person, and fourth is the hardcore operation person.
Mm.
So the founding team is very strong. The concept is good. The industry is growing. So we took a call.
Fantastic. All the best to you and to the team, to that particular
Yeah,
team as well,
thanks.
Manish.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
Again, I know it's a early stage, but how
Yeah.
do you think about exit? At what point would you hit exit? What's your strategy for exit?
See, as of now, to be very honest, we've just started playing the game. We're still learning the ropes. Every day is a new learning. I think every few hours we learn something new. It's not a weekly or a monthly thing. It's every day, every few hours, there's something new which comes up our way. It comes, it hits us. We stand up, we fall down, we stand up, we bounce back. So I think we're still learning the ropes. Thankfully, my business partner, my co-founder, he's an old hand in the startup ecosystem. He's been investing himself and through his own angel network. He's an equal co-founder with me. So thankfully, I have his support and advice. That's helping us. I think it's too early for us to look at exits. Also, I think we are just going with the flow. But broadly, as I said earlier, this is a high risk and high return game. If you want to, if you have, you need to, one needs to have patience to get this desired high returns. And high returns is again, I mean, it's a function of patience. When I say patience, nothing less than 5 years. I mean, if
Mm.
you're the investment in startups is totally non-liquid. It's not like a typical stock market. You log in. I mean, I've got a equity trading account with Kotak Securities. You log in. You check. I mean, if the market is going up, you redeem your shares and you make some quick buck. Startup industry is not that. Long gestation period, high returns, but the possibility of losing your money is also very, very high. So typically anything between 5 to 7 years
Yeah.
minimum is what we're looking at. So that is what we share with our angel investors also when we onboard them on our platform.
Okay. So I think this is a good segue into the other side of the business, which is the angel investors. Say, for example, I have certain money. I'm interested in investing, but I don't want to do it
Yeah,
myself. I
yeah,
want like the persons like you who already in the business, doing it,
yeah.
applying the frameworks, have a lot of contacts and network and everything. So if I want to partner with you in investing, how should I approach it? How should I go about doing it? Or is that even possible? I mean, is that even in the cards?
No, that's totally doable. I mean, that's totally doable and manageable. I mean, there's no rocket science behind that. One is efforts put in from our side as to make ourselves visible in terms of our own personal branding, my branding, my co-founder Saurav's branding. We make sure that we are visible in as many startup centric events across the geography we operate in, because I balance my time between Chandigarh and Gurgaon. I mean, I spend about 15 odd days in Chandigarh and 15 odd days in Gurgaon. So wherever we come across any events, we make it a point to be part of those events, so that at least gradually through word of mouth, through visibility, people know that okay, this so and so company Angel Blue is there. I mean, if you want to invest, you can be a part of that network. And gradually the responsibility of getting a good quality startup deal is ours. As I said earlier, we still get to be, even after 6 months of being in operation, we still get about 80 to 100 startup deals every month, out of which we filter. And I think last few months, I think we would have shared hardly about 10 or 15 deals within our angel network. So coming back to point, responsibility getting the deals is with us. Once we get the deals, okay, so then we conduct physical events and virtual pitching sessions. On average, every Saturday or maybe once in 2 Saturdays, we block 1 or 2 hours of our angel investors. We share with them in advance that, let's say, for example, this Saturday, 4 o'clock, we have a virtual pitching session. There's a very interesting startup, which is, the founder is a Chennai based IITian. Okay, he's working on a brilliant concept. Okay, we've been in touch with him for the last 4 odd months, but his valuation is very, very high. Now he is willing to relook at the valuation. The concept is very good. He's built up some traction. So we're trying to aggressively, we have this physical pitching sessions. We have these virtual pitching sessions. We share the pitch decks with our angel investors in advance. Somebody is interested, they can go to the pitch deck. If they say yes, they're most welcome to join the pitching call. And after that, after the call, then we do the routine follow up, and we try and close the investment round in the maybe next 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
So typically, what our framework is like. We don't take too much of time. We try and close it between 2 to 3 weeks. And if there is a VC involved as a lead investor, okay, then obviously it takes time. But if there is an ongoing deal, okay, if there's a bridge round, then I think maybe 2, 3, or max 4 weeks we try and close the deal.
Okay. Thanks, Manish. You've been a banker, operator, and now an investor. What do you see as the biggest challenges or obstacles for startups in India? There's quite a lot of literature about the challenges and everything for the Western startups, uh, especially those are operating in the US or North America. Within Indian, especially the trends that you talked about, food, agri, all of these things are pretty new. So, what are the obstacles that you see or the challenges that you see for these startups?
Number one, I think the biggest challenge which we have come across as an angel investor last 6 odd years, ever since I've been investing, number one, as a angel network last 6 odd months, I think the biggest challenge which we as angel investors see is most startups, I will not say most, a lot of startups we come across, there is a very heavy focus on funding.
Mm.
For them, the myth is once you get funded, your life's made. Now, that is a myth which we actually want to break. It's not that we are trying to break, and we're not doing anything new. A lot of other networks are also trying to do it. But a lot of startup founders and a lot of startups, they have this myth that once you get funded, your life's made. The life actually starts when you get funded, because till then it's a bootstrapped. You are the boss. The remote control is in your hands. You can take your calls. You want to work for two hours in a day, or you want to work for 14 hours in a day. It is your baby. But once you have an investor on board, that is when the real action starts, because your accountability starts there on. Okay, so we want to break the myth that funding is not the end of the game. Funding is when the game starts. Number one. Number two, there are a couple of, not couple, a lot of startups we come across where there is too much focus on valuation. They want to play the valuation game. The whereas focus should ideally be on creating a very strong business model, a strong revenue model, which over a period of time should be self-sustainable. It should be cash flow positive. It should be a self-sustainable model, rather than going in for a ventilator approach. So I have this very interesting term called ventilator approach. For example, I'm in an ICU. Okay, I'm breathing thanks to a ventilator which is put on my nose. Moment you take out the ventilator, I'm over. Similarly, there are a lot of startups today, even unicorns. I don't want to name them, and the whole world knows them. There are a lot of supposedly good startups which are supposedly doing well. They're on a ventilator. You remove the ventilator, you remove the external funding, and there you are. So ideally, we want to break this myth that valuation is not the game which is going to be played. last one or 2 years, I think whichever events which I have attended, and I think attended TiECon Chandigarh, attended TiECon Delhi. We've had our events in Bangalore and a couple of other geographies. The good part is most VC firms, a lot of other high-profile investors, everybody is talking about profitability, cash flow
Mm.
positive, self-sustainability. Those things are getting popular now. So coming back to a point, I think the strong focus on valuation has to be brought down. The focus has to be more towards making a self-sustainable, strong business model. Number three, I think focus on having a very high cash burn centric business to get growth. Growth at the cost of very high cash burn, which is again very risky.
Mm.
Ultimately, you want to show a very high, fast growth to investors at the cost of what? There are companies, there are unicorns which are spending on average. Imagine you have a startup which is spending 12 rupees to earn 1 rupee.
Mm, mm, mm.
It's a unicorn. It's a unicorn, right? It's showing a obscene amount of growth, but is it going to make profit tomorrow? It's a big question. So focusing too much on cash burn to achieve the required amount of growth, I think that's a risky model. Most important part, I think, which has come into prominence of late last few months or maybe a year or now, is governance and compliance. We've had so many issues. I think governance and compliance. In fact, today in the Economic Times, in the editorial page, there's a big article on governance and compliance. A lot of these VCs are focusing on governance and compliance while evaluating a startup, while looking at the long-term strategy and growth path. Governance and compliance is becoming very, very important. So I think these are broadly some challenges, both at a founder level
As well as.
and at a startup level. At the founder level, I think there are a lot of challenges because a lot of times, tomorrow I want to start a startup. I've got a friend, come, buddy, let's start a startup. There has to be a line between friendship and a professional. So there is, like you have a product market fit, there is a concept called founder market fit. That founder market fit is very, very important.
Thank
So
you.
I think that is, yeah. So that is where I think a lot of people miss out.
Yeah. What I'm hearing from you and what I'm sensing, Manish, is that at one point in time, there was a explosive growth of startups. When you are talking about, and at that particular point in time, it was all at any rate, let's get customers and let's get money. But now it is, as you are saying, profitability, self-sustainment, and compliance, governance. When you're talking about it, what I'm
Yeah.
getting is maturity is coming into startup world ecosystem,
Exactly.
and that's a good
True.
thing. That's a good thing,
That's a very good thing. Yeah.
right?
Better late than never.
Absolutely. So I that is only a positive thing that I see. When there is a profitability, when there's a focus on the profitability, both from the VC side as well as from the founder side, I think India is only going to shine ever brighter.
Yeah.
I think that's
Agree. Totally agree.
I think that's a good point to end, Manish. Thank you so much for taking the time. But before I let you go, I asked 3 rapid fire questions to all my guests, and
Sure.
and I'm going to give them to you as well. The first one:
Sure.
what is the kindest thing anyone has done for you?
Kindest thing anybody has done for me. Understood the kind of person I am.
Lovely answer.
Because for me, understanding other person is very, very important.
There's a rapid fire question, so I'll stop with this. I think you also exhibit that. I've been interacting with you for quite some time. I think you
Yeah.
also exhibit that particular empathy to understand the other person. So
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
very well. Second, Manish, this podcast is about leadership. In that sense, can you please share what you think as the best leadership quality and who has exhibited in your life?
I think again I think it's a combination of empathy, understanding your team, and leading from the front. Because you cannot sit in an air conditioned office and start giving instructions to your team members that go and do this. You need to. I mean, I'll take an analogy of cricket. Look at the way Rohit Sharma is performing. He's demonstrated the kind of leadership qualities he has. He's leading from the front. I think he's an excellent role model for leadership.
Wonderful.
For me, I think one of my very initial bosses, Mrs. Sandeep Singh, I would love to quote him, who was at one point of time was the deputy MD of Toyota Motors India, and now who's a MD of Tata Hitachi. I think I have learned a lot from him in terms of leadership. You know,
Okay.
so
What is your definition of living a good life?
good life in terms of staying healthy in terms of physical health, financial health, mental health, spiritual health. I think health is overall. I mean, only financial, only physical, only mental will not help. So it's a combination of physical, mental, financial, and spiritual.
Very comprehensive answer, as all the answers have been, Manish. Thank
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you
uh,
so much.
thank you so much, Manish, for taking the time. I know you yourself said like there's a lot of pictures that are coming in, but you still found time for me. Thank you so much, Manish.
Thank you, Joseph. It was wonderful being a part of your podcast show. Thank you so much.
Okay. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. Can I request you to share the key takeaways on social media? Thank you. Have a life of wins.